Mr. Volney, welcome to WZYE 95.9 FM. And you are in the village with the dark triplets. You have with us Diana. We also have with us 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗽, and we have with us Tommy. This is in the village with the dark triplets. And we're missing 1/3 of the dark triplets. That's a young man by the name of Gary. So welcome, sir. How are you doing today?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, you know, is it Mr. Volney or
It's Herbert.
All right, no, we are very respectful. You see us say in America, we are very respectful. Eh? We like to ask people how they like to be called. We don't. It's
Well,
very important.
my name is I'm formally known as Justice Volney, but most people know me as Judge because I was a judge up to a few years ago.
How long were you a judge, Mr. Volney?
16 years.
16 years. Yeah. So I saw your last Facebook post, your last Facebook Live, and you kind of said that you were disappointed because you voted for Terrence 𝗪𝗪. Am I correctly stating that, or am I incorrect?
Well, you're partly correct. It's not a question of I kind of said that. It's a matter that I said that. I am very disappointed, and I deeply regret the error that I made in voting for Terrence 𝗪𝗪, especially, doing so as a former cabinet minister and supporter of the United National Congress, the People's Partnership, really.
So you are now non-affiliated, or
I am, as we used to say in the 1970s, I am non-aligned. I am my own man.
Also, so you could speak freely now.
Freely. I am totally emancipated. And I couldn't give two hoots about whose toe I step on.
Okay. So what is your position on the opposition leader's statement regarding the mentioning the 1990 coup? What's your position on that?
I wrote something in similar vein today, which you obviously have not seen. I am quite a prolific writer on social media in Trinidad and Tobago. And while I didn't mention her, I told my, not followers as such, but the people who I engaged daily, that when people get hungry, they're going to come down from the hills like ants come down from the high ground to find water. And it's going to be trouble when that balance gets there, when persons who are hungry, and there are tens of thousands of them today in Trinidad and Tobago, when they, on balance, they prefer to take their chance with stealing and finding food for their children, their families. They balance that against 3 square meals at the Golden Grove facility in jail. And I don't blame them, because hunger is real. And when people are kept away from their livelihood in order to be compliant with regulations that they have not been party to, that are debilitating towards them, it's a recipe for a 1990 insurrection. And in that regard, while it is that I don't care to speak about Mrs. 𝗪𝗁𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗪's position. It is a position. These are circumstances that are very disturbing to me as a politicist and as a former judge and former politician.
Mr. Volney, why would you want to? Why would you want to have a dormant volcano erupt by putting that into the public domain? Being that what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago now, yes, people are suffering, people are seeing hardship, but why put one of the most difficult times in the history of Trinidad and Tobago into people's mind, being that they are going through now? It's like a volcano sitting there dormant, you know, and all of a sudden certain things start to happen with that volcano, and that volcano erupts. Why put that into the public domain at this point in time?
My colleagues used to call me Volcanic Volney. I am a volcano in myself. I am one who speaks to social and legal justice. And when I see that the government has failed to listen to the people, to the informed public, it is not that I seek to inflame anything, but I seek to elucidate their thinking along the right way, that they have to do something to feed the people, and to feed the people now before they get hungrier. Otherwise, there will be serious consequences. It's not that I'm seeking to inflate, to start anything, but it's going to happen unless the government does something about it.
So, Mr. Volney, you are agreeing with the statement of Mrs. 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗪 then?
Why don't you put it the other way around? She is agreeing with my statement.
Well, I didn't see your statement.
Well, my statement was in the public domain before hers. And it's obvious to me that she reads, as does the Prime Minister. They read what I write. Because I am a man who has a lot of people who follow what I say, who read what I write. And I've come over the years in public life to know that the pen is as dangerous as is the gun.
So I've seen, Diana, if you want to jump in, Diana, you can jump in at any time.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. And Tommy as well. So I've seen in the public domain where people in Trinidad have been on both sides of the issue with respect to whether they believe Mrs. 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗪 is trying to incite, you know, a rebellion in Trinidad and Tobago, you know, by invoking the coup 1990. And there are other people who say, you know, a statement is not one of, you know, her trying to incite, you know, a coup that happened in 1990. But it seemed to me that you are saying that based on what's going on in the country, there's a possibility that that could happen again due to what's happening in the country today.
In 1990, if you would recall, conditions were politically charged. And you had this group, this secular group of radical Islamists led by Yassin Abu Bakr. The 1990 insurrection was to overthrow the government. What Mrs. 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗪 and I can say I speak to is not any incitement, but it is speaking truth to facts. And to warn the government and the authorities that hungry people are angry people. And they have to be mindful of this and the dangers that lurk and the strife that can come when hungry and angry people come down to the ground, come down to the plain from the heights, from the mountains, to look for food and to take the food. I have personally seen years ago a busload of people coming out of Laventille, walking to a grocery in Maraval where I was shopping at the time. They picked up what they wanted. They were on their way to Maracas Bay. There were about 30 of them. And they just walked out. And the owner was right there, and I asked her, what are you going to do about it? And she said, there is nothing I can do about it. I have to take my bounce. And there will come a time very soon when people are going to do that, because when they are hungry and they come down in their numbers, there's no way that the commissioner of police can stop them, because this is something that is going to happen nationwide unless the government smells the coffee and gets food to the poor and needy, not at the end of June, but now. It should have been yesterday. So this talk of incitement, of insurrection directed at Mrs. 𝗪𝗁𝘀𝗽𝗪 is garbage. It is political garbage. I was a judge. I know what incitement is.
No, Mr. Volney, we take questions from people in our chat, okay? It's up to you whether you want to answer the questions or not, okay? So
long as they are respectful.
Yeah, the first question is up on the pod. It says, Mr. Volney, do you ever regret your judgment in the matter with Brad Boyce?
No, I don't. Okay.
You know what? Thank you so much. I appreciate your honesty in answering the question. Here is another question. A person says, did you know after your judgment over Brad Boyce, he was charged in Australia for a similar crime?
I don't follow the fate of people who come in my court. How would I know that? But it is disheartening to hear that the opportunity that he had as a result of the Privy Council not sending his matter back for retrial, that he has not used it properly.
Okay.
I hope that those who are asking those questions, which were largely put to rest by the constituents of St. Joseph in 2010, when it was a political issue on my platform, and the people overwhelmingly came out and voted for me in a landslide victory, had put that matter to rest. And it is pure, low and cheap politics of those who still call that word Brad Boyce to me. They must understand that I was sitting as a judge. I had a similar decision to make as appeared in the George Floyd case when it came to causation and cause of death. And there were two different prognoses put forward by two different people. And I needed to decide the issue, which was a judge's issue, on whether I should have accepted the evidence of an unknown purported forensic pathologist. And I asked the state for evidence, which they did not produce. And I took it upon myself to take the decision that I did. The Privy Council, they criticized how I got to do it, not that I had done it.
Thank you so much. And Diana, jump in. Here is another question, Mr. Volney. Mr. Volney, what are your feelings about Section 34?
I was the architect, the sole architect of Section 34. There was no one in the Parliament who at that time had 16 years of experience in the criminal assize courts in Trinidad and Tobago as I had. And I was quite conscious of the hundreds of young black men, largely 95% black, who were languishing in prison in the remand yard without bail, without trial. Most of them would have likely won their cases. Or if their matter had come up early, they might have pleaded guilty and served out a full sentence. And it is in that context that I engineered Section 34 to give them, to level the playing field with the Director of Public Prosecutions, to get him to bring their matters up. Otherwise, they could apply to a judge to have them tossed out, except in blood crimes, rape, murder, kidnapping. And that was the intention. And I have absolutely no regret. And I was supported by every member of the PNM bench, both in the House of Representatives and in the Senate, who voted for it unanimously. That's Section 34, right? And it was only because two persons who the DPP had not brought to my attention would have been impacted as regards the state's prosecution after my permanent secretary had written to him asking him these questions. It was only after those two people made the application in a matter that is now over 20 years and it hasn't come out of the magistrate's court yet, that the PNM saw, and I'm now starting to realize that your audience is largely PNM supporters. From
No.
No. I discern it from the questions.
No.
No fool.
Mr. Volney,
it is
let me say this to
only
you.
when the PNM saw an opportunity to get at what was then a successful People's Partnership agenda and government that they grabbed at it and went behind me. Okay? They grabbed at it and went behind me. They got me.
Mr. Volney, let me say this, right?
Yes.
I am a supporter of the PNM. However, in this radio program,
yeah,
we may have more people who are supporting the opposition than supporting the PNM.
I couldn't care less, you know.
No, I'm just saying you.
Observation.
No, but I'm just.
In the last general election, I voted for Terence Dayal Singh.
Yeah, I understand that, but I just wanted to correct you with regards to the audience here on WZYE 95.9 FM.
I stand corrected.
Wonderful, because I'm a supporter of the PNM, you know. But and Mr. Volney, listener, I bring you on here. We like to bring people on here. We really don't care what party you support. We want to come and get information. So what you are giving us here is information. Another person has another question for you, Mr. Volney. It says, bills and more bills, debts and more debts. They don't care, Mr. Volney. Once they are guarded, that all matters to them. I don't know if you want to address that.
Bills and more bills.
Bills, debts and more debts. They don't care, Mr. Volney. Once they are guarded, that's all that matters to them.
I wouldn't say so. I appreciate the work of Mr. Faris Al-Rawi. I appreciate the work of Gadsby Dolly, the Minister of Education of Marvin Gonzalez. A lot of these bills that are brought before Parliament are basically necessary bills. There hasn't been any landmark bills in Parliament since when I was the Minister of Justice, and I brought groundbreaking bills to Parliament, like electronic bracelets, DNA legislation, all of which were passed unanimously in the Parliament. I don't get credit for it, but it's okay. No. The government's job is to bring bills to Parliament.
Mr. Volney, another question here. Mr. Volney,
I have a question.
Let me just ask this, Diana,
Okay.
and then I'm going to get to you. Mr. Volney, is the judiciary system failing?
The judiciary is akin to a car driving on 4 flat tires.
Whoa.
It is moving, but it's getting not very far. It's not producing. I mean, speaking of my time as a public prosecutor in the 1980s and my time as a judge between 1994 and 2010, you would pick up the Guardian, and page 3 and 4 were full stories of action, cases being tried, people being convicted of murder, of rape, that sort of thing. You don't see that again. When last you heard of a murder conviction in our courts? The judiciary has grinded to a halt. The civil side has been more or less performing fairly well. But the thing about it is that I have a problem with the constitutional side of the civil jurisdiction, where I have noticed a tendency for judges who largely have worked come from the Solicitor General's department, finding only for the government. And that tells of an illness in the system. And that tells that judges are being picked out despite all the systems that they have put in place. They are being picked out to deal with certain matters. And that bothers me.
Diana?
Mr. Volney hit on a point that I have been harping on this program for the long. This is 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗽, sir.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Likewise, I am a resident author, poet.
Oh, great.
So I feel the pulse of things and I report on it with my pen.
Yes.
The disparity that we see unfolding as a social comorbidity from this pandemic in Trinidad and Tobago, do you believe that this has been in existence for a long time, but the bungling of COVID by the incumbent has really shown that there are no systems that are working in place that will capture, the poor people, that really look out for the poor people, and it is really a system that engages and has a safety net in place for the 1%, and the 99%, let them fend for themselves, let them eat cake.
No, that is a hell of a ball a batsman has to face.
But you sound like I was an opening batsman, man.
It's right on the spot. If you don't get your bat in place, you're gone. Well, let me tell you from the outset, both as a judge and as a government minister, I opted to go into the public health hospital system. I had cardiac issues, and I have always shown confidence in the public health system. Of course, I got special treatment because I was a high-ranking government official. But the quality of care that I saw and that I had would suggest to me that I went around the ward that I had been, and there weren't any 1% people inside of there. There were regular folks getting the same treatment from the doctors who were walking around every morning and in the evening. I think, however, that the record keeping of the hospitals when it comes to people with comorbidities is outrageous and falls short, because they should have had the database to be able to identify those who are most vulnerable to COVID and to address their cause before inoculating younger, stronger folks who are getting the vaccine and surviving, while those with comorbidities that who have been in the system still in the line and who are dying, you know. I think I may have answered your question.
Mr. Volney, another question. Somebody asked, are you getting a pension?
I'm getting a damn good pension as a judge. It's tax-free, actually.
It's tax-free?
It's tax-free because all the perks of a judge are tax-free, and also of a retired judge. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting a good pension. I am okay.
Well, so Diana, you have
any follow-up?
Yeah, Diana, you have a follow-up.
Well, I didn't want to encroach on the...
You know that judge, you know that.
Yeah.
No, she's not just dealing with a judge, she's dealing with a wise man.
Yeah. I'm aware of that, sir.
And you're very knowledgeable of everything. I could sit down for hours and talk with you about the politics of your country, because as a retired man, I watch all the talk shows, you know, on MSNBC. From time to time, I'll take a glance at Fox, but largely MSNBC and CNN, you know, and I have a pretty good idea of what's happening in the USA as well.
So can I ask you, Mr. Volney?
Sure.
And are you doing anything in your immediate community? Well, I don't think anybody might be hungry in your area, but are you stepping out of your comfort zone to assist anyone in neighboring communities?
Well, my family has more or less adopted a family that the mother of whom once worked for us, who has some young kids, to help with stuff, you know. I don't know if she's working right now. And we find little ways without the cameras looking on to help the poor. But it's a dangerous thing to go outside of there. We are not like y'all in the USA who could go to any street corner and get a good Pfizer injection. It's dangerous in that people are dying like flies.
Johnson & Johnson for me.
But no, as you said that.
Pfizer, man, Pfizer.
As you said that, Mr. Volney, someone asked, do you do private cases? Let me ask that question.
I have not opened a law book since I retired in April 2010. And I am happy, and I have no intention of going back there. There are too many crooks in that profession.
Wait.
And I could only have dealt with them as a judge.
Too many crooks
ripping off people, taking their land, taking their money for every and anything. I don't want to be part of that legal profession in Trinidad and Tobago. So my answer is no.
Did you know that as a judge, or did you know that when you came off the bench?
I have known it in all my 42 years in the profession.
Okay,
and it stinks.
But Mr. Volney, as being the justice minister, couldn't you have put things in place to change some of those things? Have you been the minister? They call it the justice minister, I think, at that point in time.
Yes, the
Could you have
Minister of
done
Justice.
things, right, Minister of Justice? Could you have put things in place to change that?
Brother man, let me tell you something. When you're in cabinet, you don't encroach on the portfolio of the Attorney General. These are matters that were under the portfolio of the Honorable Attorney General. And he was very guarded about his portfolio work. My job was reformative. It had to do with the administration of criminal justice. And in my 27 months as minister, of which 4 were when I was ill with my heart and I was not working at the start, I passed a lot of very transformational legislation. So the answer is no, because I would have been encroaching on the portfolio remit of the Attorney General, Anand Ramlogan, at the time, and he wasn't easy.
What do you mean by he wasn't easy?
He would have told the Prime Minister that I'm interfering in his portfolio, and I might have got sacked before. You see this? You see what I'm pulling there?
Yeah.
It's different to his.
What do you mean by that?
Come now. You're not from Trinidad?
From Lavantil, Chumakak Lavantil.
Right. Donkey don't run in horse race.
Oh God. Oh.
You know now why I was unbeatable in St. Joseph? Not even the PNM could beat me.
Yeah.
Because people love me. I am a man who will sit down and will talk with them just like I'm talking to you, but go in Parliament very serious.
Okay. So another person asks, do you have any intention?
But sadly, the little COVID beard, I never knew I was graying so much.
That a COVID
I'm
beard.
actually looking like the late Sean Connery now.
Yeah, no joke, you know.
Yeah, true.
Correct is right, you know. I know joke there, you know. Yeah, boy, you could pass for that, boy. So Judge Volney, do you have any intentions of going for a seat in the next election?
No, I don't. Let me tell you something, man. I am happy at home, you know. I watch every Euro Cup match.
Who's your team? Who's your team?
Match.
Who's your team in Euro?
In Euro, France.
Yeah. All right, France.
France.
You like to go with winners, boy. Seem like you like to pick winners.
Yeah. and why must I go back in Parliament? For me to go in that cold place and hear politicians kicking every day. Not me. I am good. I have a young wife, you know, man. I have to pet her. I stay home and pet her. My boys are 17 and 12.
Oh my God.
17 and 12?
They need to be around to teach them how to be a man.
Okay. Are they gonna be lawyers as well?
The little one he's being trained to be a prime minister, a future prime minister.
Oh, a prime minister.
Yeah, that is the one at 11 years old would have stayed up all night until he felt that Donald Trump was defeated.
Yes.
So that tells you something about him, huh?
That is an intelligent young man. That young man is intelligent. Now
and he did it with Hillary Clinton 4 years before. He went to get stupid like a Trini, a real Trini.
So, Judge Volney, with respect to COVID-19, what do you think, if you had to recommend, you know, you and the Minister of Health was good partners again because you voted for him and he passed. And all
if he come and ask me, I will tell him.
Well, that was saying, if he comes and he says, you know, boy, Judge Volney, give me your opinion on things you think can help the government of Trinidad and Tobago improve its handling of COVID-19 in Trinidad. What are 3 quick recommendations you will give to him?
The first thing I'll tell him, is there is no need to keep our borders closed. Put in a rule that all those who want to go to New York and New Jersey to get their vaccine, let them go. And if they want to come back and they are fully vaccinated, let them come back. Because there's no correlation at this stage in the age of vaccinations to maintain this ignorant closure of the border. That's the first thing. The second thing is look and see and ensure that there is a correlationship between the measures that they take and what is on the ground. For example, you're not likely to get the spread of COVID on a construction work site. So allow the construction workers to go back to work because they have thousands who are dependent upon them for their fortnightly wages, right? Reopen small businesses. You know how many young single mothers have who are hairdressers, see about the nails, estheticians, and barbers. You have to get the people back to earning their livelihood. These are people who don't want to get COVID, you know. They take precautions. In this age, they take precautions. They have their masks on and they do what they have to do for their own safety and the safety of their people. So I would definitely tell them it's time to start opening back the Trinidad economy by taking these steps. Now, as regards the state of emergency, I have no problem with the state of emergency, because one good thing is all the linemen after 7 o'clock on weekends with men taking their salary and going and drink it out and their children staying hungry at home. All that has stopped. And all them men who want to go and run down women in the evening time, all that done. You had to deal with your lady at home. So that is going to help family life. Okay? So I have no problem with the curfew. I do find, however, that on weekends, they should have the curfew right through. From when you close on a Friday until Monday morning, let people prepare for it and stay home. That way, you will prevent a spread. I'll tell the Minister of Health to talk to his partner, who is the Minister of National Security, and get them to lock down that southwestern border, where these Venezuelans are coming with the Brazilian variant. They're still coming in. Shut it down. That's where it came from, right? And then finally, I would tell him, as harsh as it is, and my wife don't agree with me on this one, put a movement block between administrative regions. In other words, if you're in the Caroni region, you cannot go in St. George. If you're in Victoria, you cannot go in Caroni. That way, you keep the community spread where it is, and you don't allow it to spread across the country, with people from south coming to the north and those from the west going to the east. That is a simple matter that they could have done, because each region has its own hospitals. Each region has its own health centers. Each region has its banks, has its big groceries. Everybody could be dissected into regions. And that way, you'll be able to identify where the serious part of the pandemic is, and you'll be able to shut it down in that area first, and then deal with the one next door. Those are the basic, simple things that I would advise my friend Terrence. We're still friends, you know. It's just that I can't vote for him again. But he let me down.
So, with respect to exile and stranded citizens, part
With
of our
respect to what?
exile and stranded citizens. We call it because that's what we fight for. People who are, we call them exile and stranded citizens because they have been exiled from their country and they are stranded.
Have
Right?
they applied for exemption to come in?
Oh
They
yeah,
don't have
yeah,
to
yeah.
apply for exemption.
Yeah, people have applied. There's still people who are stranded out here have applied for exemption and haven't gotten any exemption. Why has the country, the government continued to lock out exile and stranded citizens? And we know that they are not the ones that spreading COVID-19 in Trinidad and Tobago
They
when
are
they return to Trinidad
vaccinated.
and
They are
Tobago.
fully vaccinated. There should be no problem. They shouldn't even have to go into quarantine. But you see, they're living in 2020. These people, these doctors, Dr. Parasram and these people who putting on jacket and tie every day because they're getting national attention. These are the people who are running the country today with these regimes of exemptions and quarantine. Could you imagine the nonsense that you are telling people who are found to have COVID to stay home and to infect their family, telling them you must use a different toilet, a different bathroom to the rest of the family? Where they going to get that different toilet from? Most houses in Trinidad have one toilet and bath. So what nonsense. These people are living in a fool's paradise. They're the ones who are advising. And they are still living in COVID before the era of vaccinations. Now that most people in the USA, certainly in the states of New Jersey, that had it bad for a while, New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York, where they take CAL to come back home. As far as I am concerned, there should be no problem once a citizen, in the first instance, a citizen, presents us a vaccination card that shows that he's vaccinated for more than 2 weeks. Before he boards the aircraft, he should be allowed to get on the aircraft on the way to Trinidad. He shouldn't have to apply for any exemption. Right? Remember, he's paying for his ticket in US dollars, which is what the country needs. And when he arrives, if you're taking vaccinated people seriously in your own country, which is here, why can't you give them the benefit of no quarantine? Instead, you're quarantining people who are fully vaccinated for 2 weeks. It is asinine donkey logic. And the people who are sick, who should be put in the quarantine, the local people who have been diagnosed to have COVID, who should be put in the quarantine and monitored, are being left at home to spread it at home. These people are crazy. They're crazy, and the Minister of Health doesn't have the sense to see that they have it upside down. I'm sorry, this is not politics, This is a simple case of rank stupidity.
One other quick question for you, Judge Volney.
I'm now warming up, man. I'm now warming up.
Do you consider the Law Association an independent organization?
No, because all the top rank in the association are being fed government briefs, and they don't respond for the people because they know that if they do, they will lose these very lucrative briefs. Let me tell you something. I'll give you an example. You remember when the Speaker of the House had read out his edict towards me to vacate the seat of St. Joseph, right? I went to the Bright Senior Council, and all of them told me they couldn't take my brief. You know why? Because the Attorney General and the state had approached them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many lawyers the Attorney General needed to fight Volney? One. But by going to them and telling them, I would like to discuss with you the Volney case, it means to say they had been approached and they couldn't take my case.
Correct.
So all of them have been presidents of the Law Association or secretary or whatever it is. Do you seriously think that that organization, which has been sleeping when people's rights are being encroached upon, do you seriously think that they are independent? They are not.
I have a question for him. They recently ruled against a young lady who took the government to court that her constitutional rights were infringed upon, and she suffered undue hardship. We won't get into them right now. She's one of
Claremont.
our,
Her name was Claremont.
right? Yeah, Miss Claremont. Okay, good. So you're aware, you're familiar.
Of
Why
course.
is it? Why is it that they are? I mean, we had another guy on the program another lawyer. I can't remember his name. Ansem, you could.
Yeah,
They're holding on to this 1940 saved law to further oppress people in 2021. Whenever I hear something from way back, I'm thinking colonialism. And colonialism and its tentacles, we know the damage that it did to the Caribbean, especially Afro people. Now, here it is in 2021, this 1940 saved law, in my mind, without being knowledgeable of the law in depth, you're using things to, strangle people again. And I think the young lady had a legitimate case. What do you say to that, sir?
I agree with you entirely. I have written extensively about it, starting with the case of the people from the Alicia's guest house who had approached me first, and I passed it on to a former Attorney General, Anand Ramlogan. And he took it to the High Court. He made all the points that I had given to him, inclusive of the question of whether regulation made under the 1940 Public Health Ordinance could override constitutional guarantees of fundamental rights and freedoms. And the judge who was promoted to the Court of Appeal on the Monday after delivering his judgment on the Thursday completely missed the point. It went to the Court of Appeal where there were 3 judges. And as I say, in this country, Chief Justice Archie, who is deep with the PNM, would have chosen his judges in the appeal court. One of them, also from the government service, as was Justice Ronnie Bodu Singh, who was himself from the DPP's office, gave a judgment in which she did not give her own independent reasoning. All she did was accept the reasoning of the first instance judge. And the other 2 dodos sitting up there simply said, I agree, I agree. To get justice, you have to go to the Privy Council and hope that you get 5 good persons to understand the point that the savings, old saved laws cannot preempt constitutionally guaranteed rights that are infringed by these regulations. That's my position. So I agree with you.
So Mr. Volney, we want to thank you so much. We want to, if you can stay a little bit with us, we got to go for a quick break for the top of the hour. We appreciate you coming and spend some time with us. And we're going to, but before I go, right, someone asked, let me just ask you this quickly, and then we're going to go for a quick break and we're going to come back. How do you feel about your Section 34 setup in a way that Steve and Ish could be gotten away by the bill that you created? Stick and stay. We're going to address that as soon as we come back. Right? Of course, it's in the village with the dark triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. Of course, we come to you every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And we have with us tonight the learned judge who has decided to join us, Judge Volney. I'm calling him Judge Volney because, of course, he was a judge for quite a long time and also a minister, a justice minister, under the People's Partnership. So we're going to go for a quick break and we'll be right back. Stick and stay. Don't go nowhere.
You're listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. You are listening to WZYE 95.9 FM. The most influential name in Caribbean radio in the tri-state area. Broadcasting from East Orange, New Jersey. The most influential name in Caribbean radio. WZYE 95.9 FM.
And of course, we are back with you. It's in the village with the dark triplets on WZYE 95.9 FM. Of course, we have Diana. We also have Tommy with us. And we have no other than the learned judge from TNT, Judge Volney, joining us here tonight. So, Judge, let's get back to this question here that was asked of you. It says, and Judge Volney, we really want to thank you for being really forthright and answering these questions because you could always punt. Some people that decide they want to punt, because you're a politician, and politicians
No,
like
no, I'm not a politician.
No, not a politician anymore.
No, never was. I
was
a man with a mission.
Okay. So how do you feel about your Section 34 setup in a way that Stephen Ish could have gotten away by the bill that you created?
This wasn't a Stephen Ish bill. This was a bill where over 30 people had applied for the relief. And most of the people who had applied were people who had cases pending for over 10 years. And it's not easy to have a case pending over you. Your whole life is totally messed up when you have a matter that you want to get over with. And it's not being called up. It's just hanging there. Steve and Ish are among the ones who stood out. I did not know them, never met them when I did the bill. And I had no knowledge of the age of their matter in the courts when the bill was piloted by me. And I'm not sure even the Attorney General or the then Prime Minister knew of the age of that matter, which made them eligible to or to qualify to move the court for the relief that was set out in the bill. This is a matter that had been debated in the Parliament. It was a groundbreaking piece of legislation to even the playing field between the oppression of a DPP that did nothing to further the cause of early justice, and the man who was without bail or even with bail, having these matters hanging over his head for those long periods. Let me point out to you that before the bill was proclaimed, I had asked the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Justice to write the DPP. And she did so on 2 occasions, asking how many people would have been impacted and how they would have been impacted and how the state would have been impacted. And the DPP, mindful of this and obviously knowing of this big 𝗪𝗪𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗽 case, had an opportunity to raise a red flag and never did. That is why I feel that I was set up by, among other persons, the DPP. Because no sooner that the bill was proclaimed, he wrote a 3-page letter to the Prime Minister calling for it to be removed, you know. Now, when it came to the actual decision to proclaim it, I brought the cabinet note to the cabinet, and the Prime Minister asked me if I had consulted with the DPP and the Chief Justice on the bill. She did not say on Section 34. She said on the bill. And I said yes, which was truthful. She subsequently turned around on me when there was a PNM-inspired march that frightened her. And she called me up to her office, and I told her exactly that you never asked me about Section 34, and that I did in fact have a discussion with the Chief Justice on the proclamation of the bill itself, and that while Section 34 had been raised, it was just an aside. It was not something, and I told them that, look, I was playing hardball, which took my wicket. I told them, well, the government had decided upon this, and the Parliament had passed the law, and now is not the time to talk about that. If it is that you want us to do something to correct the law, then you need to make your recommendations. None were made, and I was used as the fall guy, as they say. But I'm glad, as it turned out, that I was fired, because it meant that I was not in that very corrupt partnership government, which became exponentially corrupt in my absence. And people do not see me as being part of the corruption. They may see me as part of a government that became corrupt. So I really didn't seek to help any Stephenish. I was doing my job to help the poor boys inside waiting trial and couldn't get a trial.
But Judge Volney, are you saying that while you were in the government, they weren't corrupt? They only became corrupt when you left? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. That is correct. The only error that they had made was 𝗪𝗵𝘁𝘀𝗽𝗽, which I had opposed. I told the
No, there was a lot more errors than that, man. Come on. I mean, I do recall.
Do you know when I lost my job? The 20th of September 2012. If you can find any corruption up to that day, you must let me know. Because I would not have stood for it in the cabinet. And they knew that. I was the elephant in the room, the fly on the wall. And I think that is basically why they got rid of me.
All right. Okay. Diana? Somebody said, Judge Volney, I guess this is from your constituency. That says, forgive my bad manners. Good night to my fellow constituent from St. Joseph. Hope to see you in church soon. Am I going to church with you?
No, but our church is mashed down. They're fixing the roof.
It mashed down?
Yes, in Joseph Catholic Church, they did an assessment and the roof was full of termites. So it has been closed for the last 2 years. Like this man living in Jersey. Yeah, go church elsewhere.
What are your feelings on the present Speaker of the House?
I used to love that woman as a person. But I think that she can be a little more accommodating to when the opposition wants to raise matters of urgent national importance. She has heard and she has come across as very arbitrary when she doesn't have to be. You know, the thing about the parliament is the opposition must have its say and the government its way. The government has a majority. Let them talk. Let them talk and come across as a good and balanced speaker. You know?
But Judge Volney,
yeah,
didn't the same thing happen? Isn't it a norm in Trinidad and Tobago that whichever party that puts the Speaker of the House is going to be pro that party?
Not really.
Not really.
No, not really. Doesn't have.
Come on, Judge Volney, come on.
Doesn't have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be. But are they normally?
Look at Mr. Sinanan, who was a PNM speaker, and there were no real complaints against him. Wademark started that decline. You know, he wasn't a good speaker. He was a very ignorant man. And he lost the confidence of the House. Bridget Anisette George doesn't have to be as she is. You know, her lasting legacy will not be that she was a good speaker, because a speaker must be fair, must give both a side to speak, knowing full well that the government will have its way. That's why people like me are never made speaker, you know. Because you see, we sat in judgment of people, and we have to hear both sides.
I always say that answer.
Absolutely.
And keep them in order.
But I'm no longer interested.
So listen to this. Ulrich asks and answers, you know. He says, do you believe she's a PNM supporter?
Yeah. You could answer that to me.
He asks and answers. I mean, Ulrich, he asks and answers. So
obviously.
You have to answer that. But Judge Volney, we want to say you have given us almost an hour so far, and we appreciate your candidness in speaking with us. You ain't avoid none of the tough questions. You answer all the questions, because sometimes people feel that, you know, when you answer like the Brad Boyce question, people feel that you might want to answer it and so on and so forth. But you answered. You were very straightforward. You know, I don't know if Diane and Tommy have any other thing they would like to ask you. You know, but
I have nothing. I don't know about Tommy.
It's all head. It's all head.
I certainly do.
It's all head.
I certainly do.
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Justice Volney, good evening, and thanks for being with us. You know, I'm going back to the topic of civil unrest. And I wanted to ask, do you believe that the people who are now hungry, so to speak, will be interested in civil unrest above feeding themselves? And if they were to get into that mode, wouldn't they be setting themselves up for Gary and his boys to use their one shot, one kill approach to eliminate quite a number of them? I'm still concerned about that topic, the civil unrest situation that seems to be a topic of discussion at this time.
When hungry people come down from the mountain, you ever see ants in these National Geographic documentaries, red ants walking across streets and all that thing in their thousands. There ain't nothing that Gary and the police could do to stop it, you know, because these people are coming down like a blitzkrieg on a supermarket. It happened in 1990. It happened when they it happened with all those supermarkets, Blackman Supermarket and all those supermarkets right there by the cathedral. They just walked in and moved out in no time at all. Before the police even had time to come, they had satisfied their want, their needs. And they even then when they turned on standard and took out washing machines and people who didn't even have electricity were carrying 2 TVs on their back, you know. That is what is likely to happen. Not any insurrection to throw down the government. It is a straight case of hungry people looking for food, and they will get food where they have it. When they come down, when they decide to go down on a supermarket and they go through there, there's nothing that they could do. What they could do, they're going to lock the people inside. By the time the police come, they're done gone with the food. And that is what is going to happen. She should have more said a breakdown of law and order as opposed to any question of 1990 insurrection.
And I want to agree with you on that, Judge Volney. I just felt that the reference to 1990 was a poor choice of words, and she could have used something totally different. That's why I gave that example of the volcano erupting.
You're quite correct. You're quite correct. And let me tell you something. I have an association, a close association with the island of Dominica, where my parents are now buried. And I grew up there as a child. And while I was not there during the hurricane Maria, that decimated the country, from all reports, people who were hungry after 2 or 3 days after the hurricane, they came down in the city and they just moved through supermarkets and the police stood at their side. Many of them reported to have told them, hold something for me. Everybody was hungry. In 1990, if you recall, if you were in Trinidad at the time, they had a complete curfew for days. And if it wasn't for a fig tree, a green banana tree with a nice big bunch of bananas in my backyard, I would have starved. That is when I learned to cook green banana, like boil it and make banana sauce, banana chow, crushed banana, banana pie, together with the little lentils and thing I had in my cupboard. And when you're hungry, you're going to move. You're not going to bother with whether you're going to get locked up. You have children at home. Look, recently they arrested a woman in a supermarket who went in to steal a tin of milk, 𝗪𝗪. And eventually it was resolved because somebody paid for it for her. But she could have been locked up and charged. That is just the little, signal.
Yeah. Correct is right.
People are coming down from the hills. And when you have Minister of Finance saying, well, the checks will be ready in a month's time. The people will be dead in a month's time. Hunger don't wait on anybody. They will come down and there will be trouble in the country. There will be a breakdown of law and order. And that is not what the government is addressing. As I recommended to them, simple solution. Let the Minister of Finance deal with the Ministry of Education And for each child, whether it is 1 or 2 months value of food in a check, cut the check and send it to the school principals. 2 months for each child registered. They will take that check home and the parents will cash it and they will have food. And that will be done in less than a week. But these crazy people, they have no strategic thinkers in the government. And they're waiting to go through this and that and check to see if it's financial regulations and all this kind of crap when the people are hungry. And if anything happens, remember, I warned you people, you diaspora people in New Jersey, of what could very well happen in your country.
Judge Volney, we want to thank you so very kindly for giving. And listener, we would like to have you back here because you share a lot of knowledge. And when we come into the village, we like to get people who are going to share knowledge. You know, it's important, very important. We don't like them other radio stations in Trinidad, you know. When you come, it's bacchanal and confusion. We don't like that. We totally different.
I not in that. You ever hear me disparage anybody tonight? No, I
You know, no.
You know, people don't have brains to see. They have ears to hear. And I'm just a messenger.
Well, let me tell somebody says to this. This is somebody from your constituency. He says, tell Mr. Volney, if we have church, is in the side chapel in St. Joseph Roman Catholic and St. Joseph Convent.
Okay. Well, I've found my other church to go to in the meanwhile. But I am aware that there is a tent on the side. But I'm sorry, I ain't going to line up to make appointment to go to church. I'll walk into whichever church will have me.
Okay, so Judge Volney, any closing words? We thank you so very kindly for joining us. Any closing words?
No, I'm happy for you all up there. It seems like you all are getting on top of the pandemic. Talk to Uncle Joe. Tell Uncle Joe we want some Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson. A new man in charge, you know?
Yeah.
Last guy, boy, we would have dead before
we put him there. Yeah, we would have been dead. It's true.
No, we have plenty of people dead in this country.
You take care.
Okay.
So, Judge Volney, thank you so very kindly. We appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.